Welcome back to another round of Basis Picks. Now it's been a little while since I've done a Basis Picks. I think it's what, 2 or 3 weeks now. It's been a little while since I've actually done a full-length video. So without further ado, there's no point wasting any time. So let's get cracking straight into it. There's 3 cards on this weekend of note. There might be some others, so I apologize for any that I miss out. But we're going to be talking strictly about the Matchroom card, Katie Taylor versus Karen Carabajal. It's also going to be the DAZN Golden Boy Promotions card with Jojo Diaz versus William Zepeda. And finally the Top Rank card with the return of Vasily Lomachenko versus Jermaine Ortiz. Probably only going to cover about 5, maybe 6 fights in this. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the first one, which is the Matchroom card. Okay, so first fight that I'm looking forward to and that I'm going to be speaking about is Mary Romero versus Ellie Scotney for the European Super Bantamweight Championship. Now, how do I see this fight playing out? Primarily, Mary Romero is a very sort of dogged opponent. Come forward, pressure is going to be kind of the type of person that stays on your chest. It's going to just force you to work. It's going to just try and outwork you, out hustle you and out move you to go and get a decision. Mary is 8-0, no defeats but 2 draws, so 10 fights. Very, I guess, sort of very statuesque, seasoned as well. She's getting a bit older, but 35, still in pretty good condition. Again, never tasted defeat, so she doesn't know what it's like to lose at this point. Neither does Ellie. Now, Ellie is the much better technical boxer. She is a classic pure boxer in her movement. It is very much like a stick and move. You know, find those angles, pop that jab, sort of pop that backhand, and you know, stay safe ultimately. However, she does have a side in her that wants to try and get stuck in as well. She can make fights a lot harder than they need to be, or she can make them a lot easier than they need to be. She pretty much did that with Erica Farias in her very last fight, and I feel like in this fight she has to do the same type of thing. She's gonna have to be very responsible defensively, very economic, look for those shots, place those shots, get in and out, and don't really trade and exchange with Mary if she doesn't need to. I think though that she will ultimately try and trade at points. I think Mary is probably the heavier puncher out of the two, and I doubt that this is going to end up being Ellie's first KO victory. That being said, I feel like Ellie will mix it up where she needs to, but she's not gonna stay in a dogfight for too long at any particular point, because at this point it's literally about get the job done and acquire the belt. And I do feel that based on the attributes of both fighters, Ellie has the better overall boxing ability, and I feel like she'll end up being a bit more calm under pressure than Mary would expect her to be. So I do see Ellie Scotney winning the EBU title in a points decision, and that puts her in a mandatory position, I believe, for Shanika Johnson's IBF title, which is a very, very big deal. That's a fight we'll talk about at another time, but then yeah. So first prediction, I will go with Ellie Scotney on points, but it won't be an easy one because she probably won't make it easy for herself. Next fight on that card we'll talk about is Jordan Gill versus Kiko Martinez. Now, I was going back and forth on this one for a little while. I think Kiko is one of those guys that you never quite know if he's actually still got it in the tank or if he's just pulling out lucky punches here and there. But what I do know is in his last 2 fights, Kiko Martinez has knocked out Kid Galahad clean and broken Josh Warrington's jaw. So that tells me ultimately that his power is dangerous at the weights. So at 126, he's definitely a guy to be wary of. He's a guy that can take a pasting and just pull it out the hat last minute. So Jordan's gonna have to be incredibly switched on this. I also believe he's gonna need for every single thing to go right. Not like in his last fight, you know, 2 perforated eardrums, horrible equilibrium. He got DDT'd halfway through the fight, straight onto his head like it was WWE. Like, you know, what was his name? Gorfy treated him like he was Jake the Snake Roberts back in the day. You know, he looked to take him out. Jordan somehow managed to ride out several storms in that fight, could barely stand up and still managed to get the victory, which was it was a deserved round of luck from him. I feel like he's gonna need for Lady Luck to be on his side, just in terms of nothing going wrong. But I do feel like he's got the ability to outwork Kiko. He just needs to, again, he can't be in a fight where it's me versus you, dog versus dog. Let's see who's got the bigger bite. If that happens, he goes to sleep. But I do envision that he will use his natural size advantage, his natural reach and length and his height, and he will sort of try and keep Kiko outside of his kill box. So he'll look to box a lot on the outside, occasionally get mid-range. If he has to go inside, maybe tie, clinch, reset, push off and go again. It will be a difficult fight. He's definitely going to ship a couple of hard shots, so he's going to have to be able to weather those. But ultimately, I think he's going to actually do enough that he gets Kiko's respect, he gets his admiration. I do think he's going to win this fight. I don't think it's going to be via knockout though. There is every chance he could land one of those sweet punches. Like I said, I don't know exactly what Kiko's punch resistance is like, but he's definitely the more maturated at this weight. He knows the European game very well, and the former world champion, so it's highly dangerous for Jordan Gill. But I'm going to go for Gill on points in this one. Yeah, so that's my prediction for Jordan Gill versus Kiko Martinez. Now to the main event. Now I've seen one of Karen Carabajal's fights, so I don't have a huge sample size to go on, but I'm gonna go off a general stereotype. Not really the greatest thing to do when sort of looking at fighters, but I will do it on this one occasion. Karen Carabajal, she's Argentinian, so if you know anything about Argentinians, they are extremely tough women and men as well. They don't suffer knockouts easy, they don't suffer damage very easily. Like they get hit, they keep coming forward. They're very tough, very prideful people. The one thing I think that benefits Katie Taylor in this particular fight, outside of her boxing skills and pedigree, because ultimately we know Katie likes to have a tear up when she doesn't need to. She could make every single fight extremely easy, and she chooses not to just because she wants to have a scrap. It's almost like when she tastes blood, she enjoys it in some sick way. The one thing that does benefit her in this is that Karen Carabajal is actually a naturally smaller woman than Katie. I think she actually came up from 120. I think she's been as low as 122 before. I could be totally wrong on that. I do remember her being, I know she's been at 126. So she's come up in weight. You could kind of see it the way in that Katie was the more sort of shrunken down of the two. Still looked in great shape. Looked really good in the scales, but Karen looked a lot fuller. So you could tell that she's more eaten herself to the weight as opposed to had to shrink herself down to the weight. So Katie's natural size advantage could end up playing a huge factor in this fight. From what I have seen, Katie's definitely like the quicker of the two, so I can see her establishing a quite healthy lead early on, sort of like the first 3-4 rounds. Definitely just banking those nice and simple, and then maybe sort of trying to plant her feet a little more towards like the 5th, 6th and the 7th, which is where Karen, I believe, will have her best chances to, you know, to sort of get into the fight and make it a fight. Don't know exactly how much Katie's got left, because she did ship a huge amount of punishment in the Amanda Serrano fight, but I have to assume also that because apart from the Serrano fight and the 2 Pursoon fights, she hasn't really taken a huge sustained amount of damage or beating in any fights, apart from obviously going into fight a couple injuries. I'm gonna assume that she's gonna have too much for Karabahar and is gonna get another points victory for this one. I don't see any knockouts happening. I don't even see any knockdowns happening, but I do feel that she's gonna win like a 97, 93, 98, 92 kind of fight, and it's gonna look that convincing as well. So yeah, those are the 3 fights that I'm predicting on the Matchroom card. Shout out to everyone else who is on the card though, but those are the only 3 that I wanna put down any predictions for right now. So jumping over to the Golden Boy Promotions card real quick. I'm actually not sure of who's fighting on that card. I didn't even check. All I know is William Zepeda and Jojo Diaz. So that's the only fight I'm going to look to speak about. Now, William Zepeda is southpaw, you know, one of my favorites. But that being said, he doesn't fight like a typical southpaw, you know, tricky, slick kind of southpaw. He's very much an upright southpaw that does get hit and can get tagged. That being said, I feel this fight purely comes down to natural size. William Zepeda is a much bigger guy than Jojo Diaz naturally. Jojo's obviously come up through the weights in his career, and I believe that's going to tell in this fight. Jojo will have a little bit of success, but Zepeda, I think, has got the power, he's got the range, and I think he's got a better overall punch variety, plus he'll be able to impact his size on Jojo, who hasn't looked his best in his last few fights. So for that simple reason, I am going to go with William Zepeda to win the fight, and I'm actually predicting that Jojo gets stopped towards the late rounds. So I'm thinking maybe rounds 8, around between 8 and 10, somewhere in that, because Zepeda just got a natural volume that I don't think Jojo's going to be comfortable having to fight against. So yeah, that's my prediction for that fight. William Zepeda to win via stoppage. Last but not least, we're going to go to the Top Rank card, and heading that card is Vasily Lomachenko versus Jermaine Ortiz. Now, I do know a few of the other fights that are on this card. I know that Nico Ali Walsh is fighting on the card, so that's going to be an easy KO victory for him. Jeremiah Milton is a sort of up-and-coming heavyweight that I'm very keen to sort of have a better look at. Someone that I've heard quite a bit about over the last year, and so I do want to see sort of how he progresses. So I'll definitely be looking out for him and his fight. But to the main event. So look, this all basically comes down to, what does Vasily Lomachenko have left in the gas tank? Like we all know, in terms of skills, in terms of technique, Vasily Lomachenko is a masterful boxer. He is a great and extremely talented boxer. At the younger weights, he was very much a hit and not get hit, switch angles, pivot on you, hit you from angles you can't see, move in and outside of your range, and, you know, basically just dominate all parts of fight, knockout merchant. As he moved up through to 135, which he's still very much undersized for realistically, he's had to become more of a pressure fighter, because he's not able to fight, you know, in and out, and have to be able to fight from long range. It doesn't work as easy. He needs to stay on the inside of the rangier guys, which he manages to do quite well. So everything is about being inside the pocket, working on the inside, pivoting around shots, pivoting around guards, and opening up guards his own way to find his angles. He's been out of the ring for over a year since his last fight. So at this, or it's a year to over a year, one of the two. But either way, we don't know necessarily where he is in terms of, you know, if he's ring rusty, has he still got the legs that he used to have? So this is all very much based on, can he still do what he used to do? Now with Jermaine Ortiz, aka the Technician, he is a very, very skilled operator. very rangy. Like the way he dealt with Jamel Herring basically kind of shows you the level and the pedigree that he's on. Yeah, Herring may have been sort of like a faded version of himself, but Ortiz found angles on him pretty much all day long. He's got a nice rangy jab. He's got a good 1-2. He's got a good uppercut variety as well, stepping on it inside the pocket, which could very well be a tool that Vasily has to try and find a disable button for, because especially him coming in the way he does through some of his angles, he could get caught with that. He could definitely get caught with the straight backhand, you know, coming from that southpaw stance, having to switch inside of range. Both of them probably will be nullifying themselves within that, because Jermaine Ortiz is a switch hitter, but he does primarily look to fight from that southpaw stance a lot of the time as well. So he could find a lot of success with that, because southpaws don't usually like to fight other southpaws, but switch hitters are fine because they fight both. So that is that could work in his advantage. Ultimately, like I said, it comes down to what has Vasily Lomachenko still got left. I have to assume that he's still the Lomachenko that dismantled Nakatani last year, that dismantled Richard Comey last year. Because physically he doesn't look any worse for wear from what I've seen. He's getting older, so again, things do fade down the road. There might be a couple rounds at the start of this fight whereby he may not look exactly the same, but you know, they say that downloading of the data process, I guess once he downloads that data and starts to get to work, that could then be that could be him sort of going up those gears and taking it to Jermaine and banking the whole second half of the fight in terms of the rounds there, and I'd say 1 or 2, maybe 3 rounds at the first half. So I do see Vasily Lomachenko winning. I'm just going off of, like I said, previous info, so I can't go off of recent performances, but I don't think Ortiz has got what he's got in the tank yet. But if this fight happened another 6 months down the line from now, I'd actually probably pick Ortiz, just due to his constant improvement from what I've seen previous. But I'm going to go with Vasily Lomachenko, and I'm going to go with Lomachenko on points, because he didn't keep Comey down. He did with Nakatani, but Nakatani had kind of been worn out. And Jermaine Ortiz is a much younger, much fresher guy, and I think he's just going to be too stubborn to, get knocked down and stay down, or get himself knocked out. I feel like if it gets to a point where Lomachenko is just on top of him, he's just going to try and ride that storm out, as opposed to, trying to exchange and leaving himself mad open to get KO'd. So that's my prediction overall. I think Vasily Lomachenko is going to win it on points, like a 9-3, sort of like a 117, 111 type card, maybe 116, 112. But Jermaine Ortiz is definitely going to, show his class and show his determination in the fight. So that's my prediction. Guys, if there's any other fights that you're watching for this, please leave your predictions down below. Let me know what yours are, and we can see who's right, who's wrong. Celebrate the wins, commiserate the losses as always. But yeah, thanks for watching. Might be an episode tomorrow before the weekend's festivities commence. We'll see how my days panned out, but for right now, that's Basis Picks. Locked.